Advanced philosophy memes. We have made good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Advanced philosophy memes. We have made good memes. Advanced philosophy memes. Base fucking memes. Shoutouts to Aquarius, Declan, my boy Scott, Pedro, and everyone else that engages on my posts. And Sarah, keep it up, man. You'll get there someday. And everyone else from Queen Bees.
What did I do? Why is I'm like the blob. Okay, there we go. Nice. What kind of candle is that? That looks cool. It's like a yellow candle.
I just started with candles, dude. I'm a candle noob, so I just got the candle from my local smoke shop. This is called Smoxy, and it's of a jazz. It's a odor eliminator candle, and I guess it kind of works. I prefer my old the one I just had, which is like Nam Champa or something.
Dude, I know this isn't like the most important thing to talk about, but like, how everyone was upset at the president for getting the new Qatar Air Force One. You heard about that, right? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
So like, we had this plane for America, and it's 40 years old, and it was Air Force One. I don't know if you've seen like
it's a modified Boeing 747 capable of going 30,000 miles in under 45 seconds.
Exactly, but it has like wood paneling, and the bathroom sucks, and it's an old plane. It was cool in the 90s for what it had to be, but it wasn't like Trump worthy, like it should be like nice for this guy, I think, because he likes nice things. So he designed a new Air Force One, and
Trump designed this?
Well, he had it designed. He had.
I was going to say the aerospace engineer Donald Trump designed the new Air Force One.
He knew what it needed to have, right? He wanted it to look nice, but it's going to take a long time to build. And then it would have been done, except I think Biden delayed it or something like that. So it won't be done until like 2035. So Trump would never have been able to get into the new Air Force One.
As president,
cut to second term. Now he's gone to Qatar, and Qatar gives him a gift of this awesome modified 757 that they're going to build. The Air Force, they give it to the Air Force, and the Air Force is going to convert it into Air Force One. So now he has some cool new plane. It's like really nice plane.
And he can flex it. He's like, yeah, this was given to me by my good friend, the Prince of Saudi Arabia or something.
This was from Qatar, but Qatar. Exactly. And it's like, a lot of people were upset about it. They're like, oh man, because Qatar is kind of nuts. It's a cool enough place in some ways, unless you're anti-slavery.
Like something like
if you're anti-slavery, or if you're homosexual, or you have certain interests in certain kinds of freedoms, probably not the place for you. Like a lot of time, people from the Philippines and Somalia end up getting their passports stolen from them, and they end up working in a call center or in a construction site for the rest of their lives. Get like slave. It's kind of got some problems, but at the same time, Qatar also has nice football stadiums, and it's advancing itself very nicely. Trump took the jet, and everyone's like, oh, you shouldn't take the jet. But realistically, what was Qatar going to do with it? It's probably better for us to use it for Air Force One to negotiate peace deals than for them to use it for human trafficking or something, right? Or whatever they They're probably just carrying. What was Qatar going to do with the jet?
I mean, it was good. I was thinking some like rich prince will just ferry like world-class prostitutes back and forth. It's like, yeah,
Which
come on,
technically is human trafficking.
Yeah,
Trafficking
yeah.
humans. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have either prostitutes or, children. So
I mean,
it's a better thing that we're using it.
because I was thinking if it's like Air Force One, where it clearly has to be like a pimped out jet, like really crazy.
Yeah, let's see. Let me look if I can find the picture of it. Qatar Air Force One. It looks good. I mean, it's a big old plane. Let me see here. I think this is the picture of it. Is that right? Yeah.
Boeing
So that's pretty cool.
747.
Yeah, it's big. It's nice. But one of the things that happened that they weren't talking about was during this visit, as it all worked out, Qatar bought $2 billion worth of $200 billion worth of Boeing jets from American Boeing. So in the process of donating one of them, they bought 200. They were going to buy 160 more. So yeah, he got a jet out of the deal.
He made a deal. Donald Trump made a deal.
He made a deal, and like this is cool because this is $200 billion towards, that's a lot of tax money. Probably, I don't know exactly how much tax Boeing ends up paying, corporations paying taxes, who knows? But this is good for the American economy. Like Boeing hires people to build these jets and everything.
Sure. Just so you know, the only reason why I know anything about like Air Force One is because I just saw this terrible fucking movie starring Channing Tatum about the White House being under siege. It's called White House Down, and Jamie Foxx was president, and it was pretty bad.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was terrible.
From the creators of from the director of Independence Day and The Day After Tomorrow, which in German is Übermorgen, which is kind of crazy. And then 2012. I still haven't seen 2012, but I didn't realize 2012 was from the Independence Day director. Now I'm kind of curious. That might be
2012
cool.
was actually I didn't mind that. It was better than this piece of shit.
So this wasn't that good? This seems like it looks good. I mean, this looks hilarious, kind of. Jamie Foxx movies are always fun. Right?
Well, I think the problem is like Channing Tatum. He's not really like a serious actor for political type stuff, I think. And this is the president. Like, no matter how actiony you want to make it, like it's still about like international policy and all that shit.
Yeah. I mean, Air Force One's an interesting situation because but getting a jet from another country, you have to worry if there's some sort of weird espionage equipment. What if somehow they've got some spy stuff?
I was just thinking that, like, can you really trust the fucking plane from like a foreign part? Like, maybe they're just like, come on, Don, like, you're just being stupid. You're not really going to use this thing. Like,
well, how good are our agents in our intelligence community and our friends, like, that if we can't find espionage equipment in the plane, isn't that kind of our own fault? Like, doesn't that mean that we're really behind our own capabilities if we're not able to seek out? I mean, you should be able to you have to take that plane apart and put it back together anyway, right? Because they're going to turn it to strip the insides and everything. It's probably like mostly metal at that point. So I have to wonder how hard it would be to really to actually successfully keep some sort of spy equipment in that plane.
Well, yeah, it's basically just like a centrifuge with wings, like a fuselage, and then the real concerns would be like the electronics, the components and stuff like that. But you could always replace that.
Are we calling Pope Leo Pope Bob because his real name is Robert Prevost? That's kind of interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Pope Bob. We kind of have Pope Bob right now.
Oh, the American dude as the American Pope.
Robert Prevost. Victims group alleges Pope Leo mishandled sexual abuse. That was the one that I keep seeing. But since CNN says it, doesn't that mean that he's the good guy? Because if CNN says it, isn't it inverted or something? But I don't know. I don't trust the Pope, and I don't trust CNN. So this is like, who do you trust less, right?
Pope Bobby or CNN?
Yeah.
If you had to be trapped on an island with one of them for 10 years, Pope Bobby or CNN?
Good point. That's like actually the question. Could you answer that? What would you do? Would you rather be trapped with CNN or the Pope?
I don't know. I mean, I guess probably CNN is like the devil, you know. I don't know a thing about Pope
That's kind
Bobby.
of how I feel too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to meet Pope Bobby though. I bet he's a decent conversationalist.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to speak a number of languages, and he seems worldly. Did you see? What do you think about the white South African refugees? Have you seen that too?
No, show me.
So
Jarvis called white African refugees.
yeah, right. So I saw the picture a while ago. Let me see if I can find it again. If I go search for it, let's see, South African refugees. So in South Africa, they're not super nice to you.
They're not.
And yeah, if you're white, particularly in South Africa, they
Oh
seem
yeah,
to kind of like be genociding and all.
do
They call you a
terrible
lot.
things to you
Yeah, to your grandmother in front of
with
you while they get you washed.
machetes.
Yeah, or their genitals and their machetes. But in this picture, I was thinking about like these are some of the refugees coming to America. What's something about this picture? Do you notice anything about these refugees that's different from other refugees?
They all seem happy as fuck. Like they all just have this big shit-eating grin, and they're just like, yeah, we're gonna be Americans now. But then
that might be the thing. They're gonna be Americans now. How many refugees have you ever seen holding the flag and smiling of the country that is saving their lives? You know what I mean? Like I've never seen like Syrian refugees holding the German flag in Germany. Right? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but this stands out to me a lot. This idea of like, thank you, country that's rescuing us. We're proud now that we're gonna live in freaking, I don't know, Idaho or wherever the hell we're going.
Yo, they're ready.
We're becoming American. They're becoming Americans.
They're ready for mortgages, high APR rates. They're ready to get a car loan. They're ready for the shit.
Private medical insurance. Yeah.
They're ready for Social Security, a union job. They want it all. They want the whole 9 yards.
Well, I saw some lady that was like super like, so a lot of people hate the South African refugees. There was this not wanted, I think is what I heard this lady was saying. I wish I could find the footage of it. But Democrats do not want South African refugees to settle the U.S., only want them to be sent to Germany and Holland. Democrats only want black and brown migrants. Whites aren't welcome. White South Africans settled 200 years before the Zulu arrived. The Zulu people, a collective of non-native tribe military forces together by Shaka Zulu, didn't even exist until the 1800s, long after the Afrikaans settled in circa 1650. Democrats are calling on the South Africans to return to Germany instead of coming to the United States. So what do you think about that kind of this idea that, well, technically these South Africans, they came from Germany, so they should be sent back to Germany. Does that make sense to you, or is that crazy?
Well, I mean, it doesn't make any less sense to me than like some of the other refugees we've taken in as the United States. But I guess the big contention is, hey, these aren't brown people, okay? They're whites. They could go back to their own white lands. But I don't know. I mean, I don't really see a difference. It's just, I don't know. I'm sure someone could come up with a way more nuanced reason why these people shouldn't be here. Like, oh, this could cause a chain reaction in some international policy scheme that'll somehow render us homeless. I don't know. But
it seems kind of like it's interesting how racist it is that they're saying, like, so you got these refugees and they come to America because they're having problems in their state. But then the Democrats or the left, anybody who's against it, are saying, well, they're white and so they're European. And so racially, they should be forced to go back to Germany or somewhere like that because racially they should be, I don't know. To me, that seems weird and hyper racist. I think Andrew's joining. That's awesome. What do you think about this, Andrew? We were just asking. I was just talking to Chris about this because you saw the South African refugees thing.
In passing. Yeah.
So I found it interesting because a bunch of the left and CNN are saying, hey, we should really only be helping people that are coming from countries that they have
places.
Yeah, but also
the Americas.
I think it's even more than that. It's that people that come from maybe indigenous people that America's responsible for destroying the state of in some way. Like the World Economic System, the military industrial complex is responsible. MS-13 we can talk all we want about how bad it was in El Salvador, but we should remember that the United States is responsible for MS-13 existing. If it weren't for the CIA, there would not be an MS-13, right?
It's usually
So
the case.
it kind of makes sense to say, hey, we have a responsibility to the El Salvadorian people that we created MS-13 to destroy their lives of. We should probably be trying to help fix that. I can actually understand the leftist logic there, that we're responsible for the creation of MS-13. And like, these are fathers, right? So, I mean, how many of these are sons and fathers, right? So we're destroying families. I can totally get behind that logic. What I don't understand, though, is the idea that this group of people, regardless of the state they're from, because their ancestors were European, racially, they should be forced to go back to Germany. That seems like what I'm hearing mostly right now, is Americans saying that the South Africans don't belong in the United States. They should be sent to their origin countries like Holland and Germany.
So it sounds like the liberals are saying, like, keep the South Africans out, while the conservatives are saying keep the Mexicans out, right? Is that about the gist of it?
I think that's
Meanwhile, we should just be like, let them all in, or keep them all out. Like, either one, just like commit.
Well, when did the U.S. when did we close our borders? Because we had open borders for like, over a century, and then it was only within the past 100 years, maybe that we closed our borders.
I wouldn't say we ever really had fully open borders per se. That's the thing.
I mean, like, before you could just like get on a boat, go to the States, change your name, become a U.S. citizen. You didn't really like.
I wouldn't quite say that. So like in 1875, you had the Page Act, right? And so that was like the first real federal restriction. And it was mainly targeted towards like Chinese people. They're trying to keep Chinese out of Ellis Island. Sure. But Ellis Island, even though Ellis Island was allowing people in, it was still a process. You went through Ellis Island, they stamped your name, and they decided whether they wanted to let you in. It was a lot more convenient until 1875 to get into the United States for a lot of people. But Benjamin Franklin, he didn't want, the word cracker comes from Benjamin Franklin talking about krakens. Do you know that? So Benjamin Franklin referred to Slavic people and the South Germans as river monsters. Like, if you go along the river and they'll like grab your boat and they'll pull the boat into the water. So we have to be really careful about these crackers.
That's real Lovecraft shit right there.
Totally.
Like, yeah.
Totally. And that, so like that the white people or the Kraken is kind of interesting. But that he also was pushing for Scandinavian immigrants. Like, if we're going to have our country populated by elsewhere, let's bring in these white and delightsome Scandinavians. That's what, Benjamin Franklin was interested in. So we do have like a long history of selective.
We know what kind of taste Ben Franklin had.
Yeah.
He's like, yes, let's get a bunch of Slavic women. I mean, immigrants here. I hear they're better than the French.
I'm pretty sure Ben Franklin was part black too. Like, what do you think of this? I remember Prince said all this, but the more you look at it, the idea that most of these founding fathers were wearing white powder to look more white than they are, and they're all like mulatto, like all octamaroon, a quarter black.
Yeah, that tracks. I mean, America was still everyone was philandering with each other even back then.
Yeah, but wasn't one of the notable things about all the presidents is like virtually all of them were related to King Edward?
King John Plantagenet.
Oh, King John, that's what it was.
I'm not sure which King Edward you might mean. They might also, because I'm sure that if they're related to King Plantagenet, they're also related to King Edward. But King John Plantagenet's interesting because he signed the Magna Carta.
Baby.
Yeah, the one who signed the Magna Carta.
You cannot eat dog food. Sorry.
Well, you can. That's why they make it healthy enough for humans to eat when they're poor.
No, maybe the stuff in cans, but not the kibble.
Oh, right? Is the kibble bad? I don't know. I never really was a
lot
fan of it.
Filler. This one, the first ingredient is protein, or the first ingredient is chicken. It says on the package. I don't know how much you could believe that, but that's what it says.
Well, all right. I busted my thoughts on the news. What have you guys been up to this week? I heard you took the ferry this morning, Chris.
Yeah.
You were going through, and there's like protests and stuff going on in New York right now.
This is the first time in New York I've ever seen like pro-Palestine
Anti-Israel protests in New York is pretty rare. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it in college campuses, but in the ferry, like that exact location, it was the first time I've seen it. I was like, wow, it's first for me.
I mean,
People
on a
seem
scale
people
of
seem into it.
one scale of 1 to 10, 1 being it's not Kanye's fault, 10 being it is Kanye's fault. Where do you? I don't know. What do you think?
The
Kanye, I
man's
think,
bipolar. He got, which as we all are familiar with, that someone who has that suffers from, going from the extreme of extremely low self-esteem to, delusions of grandeur and this is kind of, it's just, honestly, if you look at his trajectory in the past, this isn't off the charts. This is perfectly on the graph.
Dude, I mean, I saw this video earlier. I'm not gonna play the song, but you know what song they're playing. Everywhere all over the world, they're playing Kanye's new song. It's just everyone loves it, except for
yo, Kanye West single-handedly started White Boy Summer 2025.
it is. It's the sequel to White Boy Summer. It's ironically N-word Heil, but it's also it's like Hitler with a hard R, I think is also kind of interesting there. Like I've never heard Hitler with a soft R. It should be like Hitler, you know what I mean? Like that. That's the thing. But look at these girls in Thailand, and they're not just waving. If you really pay attention, you know what's going on.
They're
here.
saying my heart goes out to you. Come on.
Yeah, right. That's the whole world's changing so fast because you could never have done that before. You know, like you could never.
I mean, you could. You could.
Could you?
Yeah.
Why didn't it happen before? It's
because
already
the consequences.
It's already banned everywhere. Yeah, like this is the first time social media has made it possible. You know, there's a saying: the revolution won't be televised, right?
That's the 50-year-old catchphrase.
The new catchphrase is the revolution will be uploaded and deleted and re-uploaded again over and over again.
That's hilarious.
Something like that's happening because they'll ban something, but then people will continue to make it. This is the only time in history where that's possible, where you have so many opportunities to re-upload something that there really is a sort of a democratic mechanism of what people want to hear, what people want to see. It can't be suppressed. Melissa says he's not bipolar, he's autistic.
Is autism even like really a thing? I mean, what's the single quality that makes a person autistic?
I want to even expand that even deeper, which is like how healthy is it to label these things, right? And what
it's a blanket term, like obesity,
Does it benefit the victim of something to tell them, oh, well, you have this condition, you have a disorder, it's labeled this, we're going to label you this, you're not alone, all these other people have this thing? And doesn't that kind of cause you to think to yourself, well, it's not my fault because I have this problem? That it's like I'm not alone with this problem, other people have this problem too, so I don't really need to do anything about it. And then that problem is being defined usually by the worst offenders or the worst perpetrators, people that are suffering the most from a thing. So they're thinking, well,
look at RFK's speech. He's like, these people with autism are never going to be able to pay taxes or hold a job.
Elon Musk is agreeing. Yeah, exactly.
I think pathologizing everything is definitely bad. It comes with its negatives, but at the same time, it's like there's definitely legit things that need like diagnosis. It's just usually they have like a reasonable criteria, but some things have such broad of a spectrum. It's like, it's meaningless. It's like, what if there was such a thing called like brown armism? And that person's like, wait a minute, that person doesn't have brown eyes or long arms. Then what? And it's like, it's a spectrum. You see, some people with brown armism don't have either. And it's like, what? It doesn't make any fucking sense. But some things, yeah, I'm sure, like it's kind of, if you have cancer cells or like a lump somewhere, then chances are it's like something's going on.
There's a thing called the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM, right?
Yeah.
And DSM-5-TR, which they use. I don't think it's everywhere, but in America particularly, it's something where if you have 5 out of 9 conditions, then they can say that you have the condition. But you might have, it's like almost 10 different things, and you might have 3 different people that have 5 of one thing and 5 of another thing, and yet you'd say that they have the exact same condition. And I wonder a lot about that. Like, how are we able to really, like you just said, pathologize people's conditions.
Well, I mean, the benefit, the sociopathic benefit that I could think of is like this helps us sell drugs. Like, you know, if we could put a label on something, then we could sell you the right drugs to like treat it, to manage it, so it could be normal.
Treatment. Exactly.
Yeah.
The DSM is a guidebook for like, oh, this is an ailment. How do we treat it? Sometimes it's pharmaceutically, sometimes it's, you know, other behavioral therapies or something like that. And, you know, an institution where people can be employed to treat something. Like alcoholism, for example.
If I was in any of these institutions, I would actively lobby to like whoever is in charge of like saying this is a real thing, you know, so that people would seek treatment for it in whatever way the doctor says, you know, because it just makes me more money. It's a no-brainer. It's like just a solid business decision, honestly.
So not to jump topics, but also kind of, sorry, apologies for hijacking. Are you familiar with the most recent, I guess it's not that recent, it's about a month ago, the UFO whistleblower Matthew Brown? He worked in the Pentagon. Immaculate Constellation, that's kind of...
Yeah, I've seen his face. I know you're talking about. I haven't really looked into his most recent whistleblowing, but I did look into the Immaculate Constellation reports from like almost a year ago now. I think last fall was the UFO hearing that kind of talked about Immaculate Constellation.
Yep, and then he released a book. And who did he talk with recently? One of those like UFO like media guys. What is it? George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. You know, they've been kind of teaming up to interview people. Yeah, that's the one.
A lot of people don't like this guy or don't trust this guy, Jeremy Corbell.
How are you supposed to trust somebody? Just generally, that's actually the end of the question. How are you supposed to trust somebody? You know,
I think what he does is he, you know, gets people who, you know, at least their paperwork adds up, and he presents them, you know, as a journalist should, and then the journalist presents the information, and we as the audience or the consumers of the information decide for ourselves kind of how much we believe it, how much does the evidence add up for us.
I mean, this has been on my mind actually because my friend's Search for Psychic Sasquatch UFO documentary. So a number of people have connected over the years Sasquatch to UFOs, and that got me more interested again to look at it. This idea of that at both ends of time, because you know, are UFOs really from outer space, or are they just from outer time? Are they from us in the future? And if UFOs are from us in the future, is Sasquatch a bipedal hominid from the past? And this explains a lot about that idea. Like we've been talking about state parks, right? Like state parks are places that are kind of out of time that people disappear at. They have these really weird events where people go missing, and maybe you find something that was lost on the trail 20 years earlier or something, you know, like, but it's brand new. It's not covered in dust. And I wonder more and more about the UFO thing as not an alien, but somehow guidance from our future or something that's trying to keep us.
I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think that both are equally probable and possible, given the variety of what they're labeling now as like non-human technology. It could be, you know, advanced civilizations from the past traveling to their future, or like, you know what I mean? It's we're at the crossroads of so many different like times and potentials, and you know, there's the alternate reality thing too that could be a possibility. But the fact that like you know, the shadow government has been investing a lot of time and energy and money into like investigating these things, and even, you know, any government around the world who has the money and has the people with the brains to really pick this stuff apart is dedicating resources to figuring it out, and they're entertaining all of these possibilities that we are right here. And you know, we don't have any of the information, and they actually have the data in front of them, and they're tracking everything down to its respective sources.
Do you have a meta kind of theory, like on what do you kind of think's going on? I mean, it's okay if you're wrong. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, it's I accept that like a lot of things could be possible, and like I don't think reality is concrete as any of us would wish to believe it to be. But I think that, well, like I was saying earlier, I think it's equally possible that what we're calling like UFOs or UAPs come from alternate dimensions, the future, the past. It's some sort of sufficiently advanced technology that renders time obsolete for whoever is piloting this thing. Because we know that like time is really just it's we're labeling an expression of causal probabilities.
Causality.
Exactly. So and all that stuff obeys the laws of physics as we understand them, but there's also sort of because the traveling through that thing involves consciousness, and consciousness isn't necessarily bound to obey. Consciousness doesn't obey the laws of physics necessarily per se. If you could find a way to interface with matter in such a way that favors the flexibility of consciousness, then you really could go wherever and do whatever. And I guess the type of attitude you need to have to reach that point is,
I think it's available. It's just, it's not, maybe not to a degree like where we could like teleport, across the galaxy in seconds. But I think to a degree in our personal lives, it's like, yeah, I do agree with that, where it is all about consciousness. And if it's your emotional state, and I always say this, it's like, imagine people that could control their, like make themselves happy or sad at will using just their thoughts. I mean, like what kind of person, like what kind of species would that turn us into? And I really think that's basically the basis of making us psychic. Like the most powerful psychics can really just control their emotions. And I think it is possible. And I think that's really the basis of like constantly generating new realities. It's really just starts with like your intuitive feelings, right? Before you even make like that process of rationalizing a situation to make a decision, like you feel a way about it. And if you can master the nature of will, then I think that is kind of getting a closer step to like understanding how they do it, which is probably like altering your coordinates where you really are in space-time.
So I agree. I think that's a big difference between technology and meditation. That's why it might be eventually more people are able to do this with the help of technology that can focus your mind. Like Neuralink might make this easier to do if you're able to meditate. But if you go back far enough, you'll probably find that Buddhist monks were doing this already, or ascended masters were doing this already.
Remote viewing, essentially.
Yeah. And so the idea that like future UFO, like people outside of time would meet up with these remote viewing Buddhists. I mean, that's kind of what the Germans were talking about in World War II, right? Like there was this outside of time group. There might be people all through history which eventually have made it outside of time through meditation, and we're just getting to the point where it's going to become more popular or more possible, more convenient,
technologically accessible, as opposed to like a skill that you have to hone in your using technology could be an extremely relative. If you could do it organically, using technology would be a primitive form of accessing that plane of consciousness.
Higher consciousness.
Yeah.
I've always thought it was the simplest things that helped me. It was like, gratitude. And it's always the things we take for granted. Like what really is gratitude? Just being thankful. But, that could literally be the difference between making like a life altering decision that ruins your life or brings a lot of abundance and prosperity. So it's like what you said about attitude.
Church.
Yeah.
But something came across my feed with this guy who wrote a book about he was raised what's his name, Nathan Reynolds. He wrote a book called Snatched from the Flames. He was basically like a feral child, like raised as some kind of like a baby assassin. Like he was an assassin when he was like like mini Jason Bourne or something. He talks about like running away from families and being raised by wolves and stuff. And I don't know how much of it is like real or true, but he talks a lot about how you hear the story a lot. Someone experiences extremely traumatic events, and it gives them access to something within them that they didn't even know that they could channel and be the conduit of, whether that be some kind of like strength or super heightened sense of situational awareness or something like that.
What doesn't
And-
kill you makes you stronger. Yeah. Something like that.
I mean, this is why I think like the guys like Carl Jung were legit shamans, because really what they were offering was, the truth is all of us innately are capable of higher consciousness. That's not unnatural. That's not beyond us. That's our natural state. It's when we live our lifetimes in these material bodies, we build up all this like bullshit baggage with the traumas, with all the stuff that makes us basically more of an individual, like solidified and more kind of calcified from the divine power, the source of magic, whatever you want to call it. But then like if you reverse that process somehow while still reconciling your individuality, then you do what I guess Carl Jung called the shadow work. And then after that, you get access to, again, back to the higher consciousness that you had ready access to on tap when you were like a kid, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
totally.
Well, I was gonna say, I feel like the growth that you can achieve might also be controlled by what you think is your goal to an extent, because you might think might be moving towards a certain direction that eventually gets you to where you need to go, but you don't recognize that that's where you're headed. So you might jump off of that path before you ever reach your destination. And a lot of the time, we have this like simple kind of goal, which is it's a reflection of what we've seen others accomplish. So that limits often what we're trying to do, because we could probably do something way greater than anything we've ever conceived of. And it's like inconceivably better, but we end up just wanting to be like something that we can wrap our minds around, something that we've seen someone else do. So we're just so kept from moving forward too quickly. Society won't allow that to happen. It's too endangering of that sustainable growth. So we just don't let it go past something kind of a Fabian steps only, right?
Maybe we did do it one time as a species. Like we did go too far with this shit, and like Atlantis, and like the gods above were like, oh no, we gotta kind of turn it back, just flood the shit. Because like you have to admit, like once like the majority kind of figures out that sort of thing, it's like that really would have crazy implications on a material level. It could lead to chaos.
Yeah. So if, let's say, Atlantis in the past is connected to Atlantis in the future, or there's two hyper advanced civilizations outside of time, then one of the stories about ancient Sumer or the stories about Atlantis were genetic modification to create whatever kind of mythical creatures we wanted, griffins, etc. But we're right now in the process of doing that. We can have Chicanosaurus and dire wolves, and pretty soon, why not have wolves? Turn Andrew Vega's baby into some sort of a fire-breathing dragon, you know?
And this is just like the mainstream stuff that they're telling us about in the news. So you could only wonder what they have like in secret.
And if you were to seed state parks with those things, you know, like dire wolves dropped off in state parks, but those state parks were outside of time, then those state park dire wolves could conceivably show up, like travel out of the park into the past and end up in the rest of our world. So they could be seeding the rest of space time in the past with things from the future. I don't know. It's just a thought randomly I was thinking, but that might explain a lot about the Bigfoot thing too.
Yeah, I never, you know what I mean? Because this idea of this like large, like a hairy giant, it exists in every culture across the world, and they're always like attributing it to like a missing link, something that we're related to. But you know, we have fossil records of everything else. So what's special about these ones, these Sasquatch or Yeti or whatever? You're muted. Or
Sorry,
maybe they're just Nephilim in Halloween costumes. Who knows?
That's kind of the thing, is that all of the pictures originally of Jesus and Mary, you know, these are super hairy characters. They're all Sasquatch Mary, right? So is there something to that? Is it that Bigfoot is somehow related to, is it a messianic Bigfoot? Is Christ Bigfoot? I mean, that's not that far off from what the original stories were, right? That this Christ figure, only in Erasmus period did it become so much more relatable. But before that, it was something a little bit different. So could it be that we're talking about a bipedal hominid that is related to our Savior? I mean, that's kind of that's the baby. Hold on. You know what? we heard your baby in the background there, but how's your baby doing, Andrew?
Oh, sorry. She's fine. I just got my laptop and I gotta find somewhere more quiet to do this.
Star child phenotypes.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe there were like the hairy star children versus like the insectoids and the reptilians.
Cute baby. Yeah, I wonder a lot about Bigfoot more and more. I didn't used to think, I mean, a lot of things when I was young, I wasn't really interested in conspiracy theories. I remember specifically being young and being kind of taught that Bigfoot, JFK, Roswell, these things all went together, and I didn't understand any of them or why, but that they were all kind of connected to crazy crackpot conspiracy theory, right? That was the first introduction to the term. And the older you get, the more you find like each one of those things has so much more to it that it makes you wonder how many more of those things that we were taught at the same time, these words, how many of them are actually related to each other? Like if Roswell, Bigfoot, Jesus, JFK are all related, what is the common underlying factor there? Because it's not that they're crazy or that it's untruth anymore. Why is Bigfoot related to Jesus or to JFK? You know, did JFK have anything to do with state parks? I gotta look that up too. Hold on. Did JFK do anything about state parks? Environmental efforts, federal conservation leadership, established the Cape Cod National Seashore in 1961, outdoor recreation push, no direct state park policy, land and water conservation fund. I don't know. I wonder about that too. Did they clone Jesus? David asks.
Shit, I know Satanists tried to probably, or something of the sort. Like they were harvesting kids that had the blood of Solomon, where they could trace their lineage back to the blood of King David or something, and then they would do like SRA is the clinical term, which is satanic ritual abuse, to try to quote unquote breed more minions for the Dark Lord that are corrupted through the blood of Solomon. Some crazy shit. Yeah. But I don't know. There could be truth to that. Like maybe there is some powerful stuff going on in that bloodline that they don't even know about.
Dude, the Bigfoot bloodline. It's gotta be. Like the Bigfoot bloodlines from the future. Seeds man makes like the supermensch, the ubermensch that comes out of probably a Bigfoot ubermensch. And it's Jesus. I would take it.
Could be a Nephilim. Or something.
Yeah, are the Nephilim hairy? I'm curious about that too.
I know they were big.
I think maybe Nephilim count as hairy. If the Nephilim are hairy, then they are Bigfoot. So that's something to consider.
Because the Nephilim were created when the gods were like, oh, look at these cute, adorable little humans. Let's have sex with them and make new creatures. And then the Nephilim came about. They were like, yeah, we're just going to start eating people because that seems like a fun idea.
So is that because the humans they were mating with were hairy, or is it because the gods are hairy? It seems like the gods are bald lizard people.
Maybe. Or like they could transform and shit, or I don't know. I'm just thinking of Gods of Egypt. What a cool movie.
I did like Gods of Egypt. That movie was great.
Yeah.
What did you think? Did you see that movie, Andrew? Did you like Gods of Egypt?
I did not see Gods of Egypt. Was that like a...
It's a good movie because it's sort of a mythical version of the Egyptian lore of Horus and Osiris, right? Or is that right?
Is it animated or live action?
It's live action. It looks like a... Doesn't it have
Alexander Skarsgård?
Yeah, it's got some pretty famous people.
And Gerard Butler.
Gerard Butler. That was the one that stuck out to me.
Got it.
Yeah, and it has I think on one hand it's a very Masonic play, and on the other hand it might be somewhat accurate to the myth, the legend, right? Do you remember, how long ago did you see it, Chris? Do you remember kind of the plot of this? It's like two brothers fighting.
Ago. I mean, it was probably honestly just a year ago, but I never forgot that movie because it was just uncanny. I was like, damn, there's some sauce in this movie, some secret sauce in there.
Yeah, totally. So like what happens? Like the two brothers are fighting, there's a war over the earth from the two kingdoms or from the two brothers
Well,
of the
well,
princeman.
there's the it follows the law of one kind of doctrine, right? Where there's the supreme God, and he has a son that was chosen to rule, and and it's basically just a family dispute over who gets to rule the material world, Earth, and it was supposed to go on Alexander Skarsgård just by by birthright or natural order, and Gerard Butler didn't like that, and he was like, "Yo, how about I do a little coup d'état and take the shit for myself," and thus created this like power struggle. And the humans weren't really like, they were kind of like an afterthought to the gods. The gods didn't give a fuck. They were just like, you just exist to like make us happy and honor us because we're so much better than you. I think they helped create them too. I'm not sure. I gotta like see that movie again.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I like that idea that humans are basically here to mine for gold for the gods, you know? Like they're just
mhm.
basically I felt like that was a big part of it because you have to pay tithing to the gods and all of the humans are constantly trying to pay tithing to the gods in their different religions. That's what worship is presenting the worthy gift for your life. But is it that they're your creators or they're the ones who will
Enslave you.
destroy your destroyers? Yeah, they're the destroyers more than the creators, right? They're a little bit of both though.
I mean, what scares me isn't actual like physical imprisonment by such entities. What really scares me are all the recurring stories about how it's not so much that we're materially enslaved, we are spiritually enslaved. Whether that
Mhm.
manifests as like being stuck in these psychic loops of like political issue after celebrity drama or whatever, or it's like could be like metaphysical. And it's like once you die, your soul is supposed to be able to traverse the cosmos, but it gets stopped, hard gated, and it has to go back to reincarnate into Earth because that's just our lot in the cosmic world, I guess. That scares me, like, and there's a lot of
Totally.
stories about that, yeah, about like gods abusing their meta narrative abilities and enslaving us in unthinkable ways.
Well, I mean, we're right now pushing so hard with the Tesla robots in China, even China, where we used to think we had so many people they would never do this. They're pushing for AI humanoid robots to transform manufacturing. I mean, what's the point of human slaves, if you can make automatons? And I mean, why didn't this happen already in history then? If we're talking about these beings that are outside of time, what is it about humanity that's so more valuable than some sort of solid state intelligence? Why are humans why is organic life still better than mechanistic robotic slaves?
Maybe it's the soul.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that the astral projecting thing. It's like, can a computer astral project? I mean, I guess it has access to whatever network it's plugged into. So in a way, sure. Um,
But yeah, I guess that's different because it's only able to project itself to where there is a terminal.
exactly. But our terminals, so to use your language, are everywhere, uh, and like unbound by time also. So maybe that potential is kind of what distinguishes us from this like new consciousness that's emerging.
Elon Musk is saying everyone's going to want their own personal robot. I feel like that's how true is that, but also to warn of Terminator style risks. But how much do you think this is real?
Well, I
People
think
are all going to want their own space.
this kind of ties into what Andrew was just saying about how like more people are going to kind of tap into that thing. But what if like for every person that would, there will be another person that just gets cut off for whatever reason. Maybe it's like an active willful decision. And instead of leaning more into intuition, they just lean more into like cold reason, material logic, which could kind of like taken to its extreme, make you feel like, what, I think it's a good idea to put like a computer chip in my brain. I was going to say potato chip, but yeah, maybe it's a good idea to put Neuralink in my brain.
Put a computer in a potato.
I mean, think about it logically. Like, let's say you suffered from like debilitating mental disorder or something as diagnosed, and it's like this chip maybe could work. I wouldn't know. I never seen anyone like try it.
I think the concern though is that the world we live in is not a world that you can, if that technology were coming from a better place, but we know it's not. It comes from a cloud tech corporation. Everything comes from some sort of a source, like an initial idea. Like So socialism would be a cool idea if it came from the right frame of mind or mindset. A lot of people that try to promote socialism probably come from a better mindset of like companionship, working together, teamwork, etc. But that's not where the idea originates. The idea originates from managerial theory, and beyond that, managerial theory comes out of the military, and the military is kind of where a lot of social or government services come from. Like even healthcare comes from the paramedic of the army, medic, like someone who comes. That's where we need to have someone who takes care of the soldiers. And so this becomes the logic. And similar, I think prison too. Prison is maybe military and prison are the basis for every other social service. The idea of building a project housing community
Or public schools.
Of course,
Literally,
or
same
public
food,
school.
yeah, same food as jail.
Who's gonna do it? The people that have been trusted to do other jobs before. You get an architect to build your school. Well, what other works has this civil architect done? They've probably done parking structures and prisons, because these are services that have existed forever that we're going to need. And I think that makes perfect sense. It's just kind of scary because the same thing plays into Neuralink. If Neuralink was being built by someone other than a corporation that wants to sell you a monthly subscription to stay alive, that knows how to use your back end. I mean, if your brain ends up with a motorcycle accident or something like that, and you patch part of your brain so that it can work again, but then maybe like 2 hours a day they use you to mine Bitcoin or something. That's the kind of
had a Black Mirror episode. Well, when the new season of Black Mirror came out, there's an episode just about this, using technology to sort of like to patch brain damage, and then they start using the recipients of the implant to like run ads.
And you gotta get the upgrades to like run ad free.
You got to get premium. Well, premium standard, so you got to upgrade to premium plus exclusive, and it's new season of Black Mirror.
That seems exactly. That's the thing that's kind of scary. Is it's so believable, and it comes straight out of this is what's happened before, so this is what's likely to occur in the future. We don't like to think that way. We like to think about what we could do to change, but it seems like we should follow track records and see
this goes back to this even goes back to like sacred scripture, where you see like some stories or mythology show like the hierarchy of these divine entities being organized like armies. You had your captains, you had your foot soldiers, you had your lower ranking gods or demons or whatever, because they're gearing up for war. Like they're gearing up for the final shindig. So yeah, I guess that's
I'm just looking that up now. I'm just because I want to see this Black Mirror. So this is like the newest season. You said it talks about that.
The episode with Rashida Jones, although I guess they filmed like an alternate. Black Mirror has like been gaslighting viewers by filming like two different versions of an episode by like changing my. So they'll like set up like future Mandela effects. Oh, did you see the one with the little with the video game that had the little blue guys? Oh, I thought it was little green guys, and it's like both episodes.
Are they really doing that? They're like changing. There are multiple versions of episodes put out.
Yeah.
How do you see them both, or where do you see Netflix on one?
How? But I mean, it kind of goes along. They have another did you either of you guys play Bandersnatch, that other Black Mirror sort of like choose your own adventure thing? There's like a new version of that.
I heard that they got rid of that. I heard that they just took down all their interactive stuff. Bandersnatch was just removed from Netflix.
Dang.
Well, yeah, they're getting rid of. Like, there's nowhere it's going to be backed up. They don't want to have anyone. So it's like a limited time. And
I bet I can get it on Pirate Bay.
Maybe, but it's like well, you should. Pirate Bay is great, but it's like it's also morally just to use it. But you have to deal with the interactive tech. I don't know how they would make. I guess you probably. Maybe you could do it in such a way, like you'd have to have DVD chapters. It'd be like a choose your own adventure thing. So
it would be like a choose your own adventure. You probably like multiple video files connected like that.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to get all of the pieces, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's the episode with Rashida Jones. If you want to look up the one where there's a subscription-based, brain implant thing, and there's even like a range too. It's like, oh, you only have the local version. You got to get the national version, otherwise, you're gonna go brain.
Oh, and you can't go out of the area. So you're like trapped. That's messed up.
Mhm.
It's on brand for how these technologies are being applied. You know, you hear about people who, you know, they need prosthetics or they need some kind of like medical assisted device to just live their everyday life, and the gatekeepers to this technology are just price gouging because they've got a captive audience, or they know that it's going to get billed through insurance, so they're basically scamming the insurance for the people who can afford to pay their or what do you call that, like copays or whatever it's called. Yeah, it's something's broken. But you were talking about socialism, how it comes from like basically a militaristic view of organizing people and resources.
Yeah, best case scenario, because otherwise it comes out of a rejection or reaction to capitalism. And
Yeah.
so that's almost worse. And so if it comes from the military, at least like the military is a place where the goal isn't necessarily profit in the same sense. And people are willing to sacrifice profit for sustaining some sort of an agenda. So that's a lot closer to socialism because it's for the nation's good or for the state's welfare, right? And so you're willing to invest according to the needs of the state and the individuals and sacrificing collectively. And there's different places in the hierarchy because of that. But there's also a certain equality amongst workers or soldiers or whatever.
I mean, developing technology to be able to make sure that you're equipped to face whatever sort of hardships a long journey might, you might encounter on a long journey. Like there's nothing necessarily bad about that. But when you start exploiting that pipeline and that infrastructure to use those resources to, I don't know, control other resources or acquire other resources for profit, I guess, or ulterior motives, that's where things get more like, Empire versus Starfleet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're even going to entertain the idea of the ends justify the means, and your ends aren't even like great, then it's like, what the fuck is the point of it, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
again, with these things will come from ideas like the simulation theory, right? Like this idea that we're living in some sort of illusion or a lie. And we know this isn't that new of an idea. Probably the Matrix has already introduced us to this idea that the Buddhists have talked about this in the past, but even like Descartes' evil demon idea that perhaps our entire perception is being masked and lied about by some demon that's manipulating us, an evil demon. That's not any different really than simulation theory. So many of our ideas are just new epistemological ways we're using whatever tools we have to express these older ideas, but is there a way of escaping that paradigm? I mean, particularly interesting is turning the military, something that's designed to, there's a lot of violence involved with military, to turn that into something that's socialist and beneficial. Is that even possible? Can you invert what you come from? Can you do that? Can you take that and create something that's better out of the military? Make a social state?
I think you can, but it's going to take it's stuff we already know. Like if you wonder why like football works, and it's a wholesome thing, people sometimes people get hurt, but that really does come from like military doctrine. I think so to like any other team sports, because like the truth is war does foster positive things in people. It's terrible. I don't agree with it. I wish it didn't exist, but for some reason, like it does sometimes bring out the best in people, even during the worst situations. And I think that's what people kind of tap into when they invent something like American football or something, or like hockey.
I think there's a value in exploring your limitations as an individual, but also a group's limitations, working together and to be pushing those limitations. Those are all the things that happen in boot camp, and
in fact, maybe it's so valuable, it's so potent that like the greatest powers in the world just had to make a business out of it. They were like, this is too good. We can't not do this. Sure, it costs like millions of lives, but you know what? Like, this is too awesome, and this makes too much money and we love doing it. So let's just make a business out of it.
You could put all those people, it just feels like a gross mismanagement of like human resources, even. even if you like you train a large portion of autistic strong people to follow and take orders, and they're all they have lots of skills and special interests. It's you could use those people to do so much good.
Have you read? Go by what? Say it again.
Oh, I was just gonna ask a rhetorical question. It's like, if you're gonna do this, why do it for that as opposed to like a more chill, positive thing that benefits humanity as a whole?
Have you read Donna Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto about cyborg feminism?
No. What's her name? Diane Hathaway?
Donna Haraway.
Donna Haraway.
A Cyborg Manifesto. It's an interesting book because it's this idea that this came, I think, before this is 1985, so this is kind of before trans feminist zeitgeist, and this idea that what is a woman, what does it mean to be feminine, and the concept the cyborg represents a rejection of rigid boundaries. What is this human, what's an animal? But honestly, it's this mechanistic system that you build, and you could really redefine what it means to be human or what it really means to be a woman. I think this is really where the justification for trans feminist ideology comes from, is from the cyborg femininity, or the cyborg feminism. If we're trying to create a new identity, we can define it as whatever we want. And if a woman is, or a man is, more than just the nature of this loop that we have, because we have this kind of loop, which
The
is
biological loop.
yeah. I mean, but we could maybe say that there's more value to self-determination, self-realization than just that sustaining of the loop, right?
Agreed. I concur. And I think they could reconcile, but it's going to take I guess assimilation of some spiritual sense. Because, for example, reincarnation is neat because you could look at your family line as a transit system for reincarnating entities, and it's just your civic duty, your civic responsibility to maintain your family line and try to clear up some of those generational curses, just to make it just to make the system of reincarnation work better for everyone.
I agree with that. I think it's kind of the thing that we've maybe lost in the West, is this idea. It's kind of we have this rejection of the failings of our gods, so our parents and the gods that we've had, our creators, our progenitors, and we don't want to be responsible for solving their problems. But that's kind of the maybe the Hellenistic tradition that subconsciously still affects Christianity or Westernism. So in the East, you have that family thing, and you have cycles of karma, and you're trying to uplift your families, and there's generational guilt and generational sin and transmigration of karma. But in
Skywalker.
Yeah, for sure. But in the West, it's kind of Christianity is forgiving us for all of the sins. This generation comes and we just sacrifice everything. So through iconoclasm, we can forget, we can forgive and forget. And we're just supposed to let go of the past. And maybe from that, we're supposed to be able to move on faster. But even that comes from converting Western Greco-Europeans, the Hellenistic Christians, who the Greeks originally were Promethean, and they thought it was that the gods couldn't solve their own problems. And so they've created, the Titans have created man to solve the problems that the gods couldn't. So we're trying to make up for the failings of things that have come in the past by offering new solutions, which every generation is a new, we're the dead gods to our children. And then our children will have these new solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally subscribe to that. I think ever since becoming a dad, I've always said that I stand to learn more from my kid than my kid does from me. Just because a child is going to have a different perspective. Their perception is clouded by less experience. I can share with from my experience, but they're going to see the world they're going to see the world more as it is than you. And that's just a fact of how the brain wires itself throughout the course of our lives. So there, I think there is that aspect of being a human in regards to our creators, but there's also it's there's also the dynamic of my kid doesn't have my youngest doesn't have all the skills to make it up the stairs safely on their own. So when I notice that she's going to start heading up the stairs, I'm going to stop her. I'm going to get in the way of that. So, how many times have we tried to ascend the staircase without having all of the skills necessary to get to the top safely? And how many times were we, nerfed in the process? I think we're getting closer and closer to having skills necessary as a species to ascend. But I don't know. I guess we'll see.
That's back to that simulation, or like if we're like the evil demon, like Descartes' evil demon thing. Like how much of your reality is reality, and how much of every experience in your sensory perception is an illusion. I mean, how much do you feel like we're living in sort of a lie? How much of our reality is real?
I mean,
like it's blue.
We have such a narrow bandwidth of perception. Like the data that we can consciously process is so minuscule compared to like all of the data that we're surrounded by. And it's just because like our senses have been honed in theory through evolution to only pick up on things that will affect our survival. But maybe we're getting to the point where having this ethereal consciousness, we're not being psychic is going to be a evolutionary disadvantage.
Well, I like I said before, I don't think it's like we're changing or we're gaining anything extra. I think it's more like going back to the core of like what's already there, because like if you think about it, like ascension really just means like remembering what you actually are. It's nothing to do with evolving into something alien from us now, because we're already connected to that ascended thing. That's the whole point. If anything, what really keeps us from it is what keeps us individuals. It's like, oh, like you are a child of God. You have the divine spark in you. Therefore, you are of God. You are a fractal of God. And then right away, there's so many things that your biological brain could say. It's like, that's ridiculous. No, I'm just Chris. I have faults. I did this. I sinned. I lied. I cheated. I stole. I did all sorts of things that can't possibly make me of God. But if everyone collectively got over that and realized we only did those things out of fear of abundance, fear of the unknown, fear of scarcity, fear of whatever, some insecurity, again, things that are born from things that keep us separated. And that's a scary thing, because do we really want to let go of that? How much of your individuality are you willing to let go of to get closer to quote unquote ascension? I still ask that question every day because I like who I am, but I don't know. Ascension seems pretty cool. Like, what does that mean? Like just vaporizing my physical body? It's
a huge question. I mean, especially because what does it mean to be human, and how valuable are the human experiences? Without your body, you don't have your sex drive, you don't have your jealousy or rage. But like maybe these things are, some of those things are better than others. Some of those things are pretty great. And the lack of those things, I mean, do you know the difference between apotheosis and apokatastasis?
Well, so, I heard of it,
yeah. So let's pull up the wiki. So apokatastasis, we'll start with apotheosis. You might have heard of apotheosis. We use that word way more often. There's the apotheosis of George Washington painting. Is this huge picture on the ceiling, and it's really like the becoming of a god, essentially, is what you might say. So the George Washington, where's my picture? I want to get to the middle of this here. Is it the middle there? Oh, it's so big. There we go. George Washington wearing this weird Brahmin shawl kind of skirt thing, holding the sword, hanging out with the other gods and goddesses. This idea that we become something more than we were, I think is what that's a little different than what you said, which actually I kind of agree to an extent with what you said, Chris, that we might be returning to something that we already were. And that's the opposite. That's apokatastasis. And so that's the restoration of a creation condition of perfection. Rather than becoming perfect, it's returning to perfection.
the way I see it, like even like in a much like more psychic, cerebral sense, it's like we return to it no matter what because we die. And once the body dies, and if there is such a thing, then we're going to go back to it because it's energy that can't really be destroyed. But I guess the real trick is how differently will you live knowing that that's what you really are? Because that's really what how it's like pertinent to us is because we're still alive. And let's say we lived as complete nihilists who didn't really believe in anything. That's going to completely alter our life paths or our quantum collapsing probabilities compared to if we just lived our life believing that we do have souls, eternal souls, that's part of, a greater being and a broader ocean, so to speak.
I think we're more commonly accepting of. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, it's okay. Please.
I was just thinking that the idea that we're more accepting of material evolution than we are spiritual evolution. Like the idea, I mean, for Christianity particularly, is that you are rewarded with being a servant in heaven, but it's not really a spiritual evolution the way it used to be, that you're becoming a god. So many people used to believe that you progress and you become a god. That seems to be something that we don't think of as much anymore. Yet people completely take for granted the idea that we used to be slime or apes and we've become men. Like, why is it that materially we can believe through material we can make changes and evolve, but that spirit is just cycles and loops without any evolution? Do you feel like there's something? What do you think about that? Like evolution of spirit and just also.
I mean, I think the big mistake is to think they're separated. Clearly, they're very connected. I mean, how many like inventions that completely altered the course of our species' history like wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for some belief in something that may not have even been true. So it's like, I always say this. It's like even if like angels, demons, or gods or possession isn't real, the fact that it can actually alter your behavior and affect the material world kind of does make it real, so to speak.
Mhm.
And that's like like a complete psychic manifestation even, but still it's real. God could
How
be
different are we from humans 100 years ago? Do you think that we've evolved much, or is it just like through technology do we live such a different world? Is staring at your phone on the plane different than staring at your newspaper on the train? Is different than staring at your scroll on the wagon?
I think spending long periods of time in scarcity will condition your psyche to be a very specific way, and spending long periods of time in abundance, material abundance, will attune your psyche in a very other specific way. So it's like maybe 100 years ago, there were a lot more people living in scarcity than there are today. And that's going to completely change the way like people think. That's why I think like Jesus was such a big deal back then. Maybe if Jesus was around today, he would just be like, oh, he's just that chill guy who hangs out by the gas station, talking, talking about like love and shit. Yeah, word.
I was trying. It's loose. I'm trying to figure out how I could tie this in because I wanted to say it like a while ago, but I was just thinking about how long does like I don't know a snake or a chicken like how long do they stay inside of the egg before they realize that they can crack out of it or that they need to crack out of it? I mean, it's like all these. I would sort of put them at the same level as like a deer is born able to walk and all that kind of stuff. Like human beings, for some reason, our infancy, like we're born very, very vulnerable, and there needs to be a amount of community to some degree, even if it's just like more than one person, in order for that baby to have a more higher likelihood of survival. But other animals, that's not really the case. Maybe we're just, I don't know, not cracking. I don't know. I feel like we're still in the egg. I feel like we're in the egg. I know you were talking about, we need to rediscover our true perfection or whatever. It's like that's where we came from. We regressed and we're coming back as opposed to it being,
It's one way to look at it.
Everything like works in cycles and loops and stuff. All I mean by that is that we're on an upswing versus a downswing, or that we should be.
I feel like I think I want to believe that we're evolving, like, because that sounds better than being stuck in an endless loop. The loop does feel like the Buddhist suffering. Like we're stuck in a loop forever until we can break free of the loop. I mean, a chicken, I think it's like, hold on. Let me look this here on Grok. how long does a chicken stay in the egg before it cracks out? A chicken embryo develops inside the egg for about 21 days before hatching. Once fully developed, the chicken typically begins to hatch within a day or so, driven by instinct rather than conscious realization. Around 19 to 20 day, the chicken starts pipping, making small cracks in the shell with its egg tooth. So I think maybe that's where it starts to realize it, because through its own suffering and trying to, relieve stress or pressure, it realizes that it's inside of something and there isn't outside of something. The hatching takes about 12 to 24 hours.
Yeah, that's kind of like I was using that as like a metaphor of sorts.
It also seems like it's a good, it might be slightly more than a metaphor, because I think there is something to like the cosmic egg idea, that we're maybe inside of this cosmic egg, and once we become fully aware, then the entire
it becomes unbearable.
Yeah.
It's like it's basically manifest as like a guy working the same 9 to 5 job. Maybe his dad worked and his dad before him. And then one day he just cracks that egg and he's like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, seriously, I'm on YouTube every day looking at guys half as smart as I am doing way cooler shit. What the hell am I doing? I consider that kind of like, maybe not that specific example being the only one, but that's like kind of a egg cracking moment, right? And that's I think it's can be just that simple for people.
And just to build on that, the likelihood of survival is much higher when the egg cracks from the inside. So it has to be something that we need to do of our own volition and ability.
Yeah. Well, you still need conditions to encourage it, right? You need like that big old chicken butt to sit on that egg.
Yeah, incubation.
Yeah.
That community thing that I was, it's like how helpless little baby. You know what I mean? It's like one person, but I couldn't imagine. It would be very, very difficult. I think that's the only reason why we're still here, is because we found a way to communicate and found a way to work together to, I don't know, just make sure.
I don't know. Maybe you still see us in the phase of being in the egg. I feel like we're kind of post-cracked already. I think at the very least that egg has been cracked for a little while.
I kind of agree with that. I think that that's what they mean when they say the singularity is approaching, but it's already kind of here. The future isn't equally distributed yet, but it does feel like the world has changed a lot more in the last 20 years than it's changed in the last 2,000 years. And that, the difference between the world 50 years ago and now is more than the difference between humanity 100 years and 10,000 years ago, even. Like, so much different with technology and with everything.
Sorry, what were you saying?
I was just going to say that I think that those changes are directly proportionate to our ability to the speed at which we're able to transmit ideas.
Yeah, I agree. And I also have to, like, maybe this is a form of self-defeatist talk, but I always think like, yeah, we are definitely in like that post-crack state, because, I'm an idiot. Like, I'm a layman. I'm not some person who's like extremely immersed in like higher forms of academia, but even I could have figured at least some of it out. And if I could do it, I think like a lot of other people could do it. And if it's that open, if it's already that, if it's like leaking to that extent, then it is what it is. To me, it's like, I don't feel like if I was angling for a global spiritual ascension or awakening, I don't feel like I'm fighting anything. I'm just kind of leaning on something already tipping over.
Sure, what's that book? What's that book? Burnout Society. Beyond Chulhan's Burnout Society. Have you read this one? You know what I'm talking about? It's like kind of the idea that we came from a society that was based on discipline. It was so important at some point, for almost forever, to be super disciplined, and the parts of society, the individuals that thrived, they were disciplined, and those that weren't disciplined fell by the wayside. And then we moved out of the discipline model into a performance society. And this is really true, particularly in America, but also in Asia, I think today more than ever, that it's not about discipline anymore as much as performing until you die for a sacrifice. Everyone's making sacrifices to move their family forward, whether they recognize it or not. And maybe that's what's changed, is people have stopped really focusing on moving their family forward But it used to be that the sacrifices you made were performative and you could die from them and you couldn't perform those functions forever. But that's why it was no longer about discipline. It was just about doing as much as you could do in your chance to do it, and then passing the baton to the next member of your lineage or your family in order to move things forward. And so we're burning out. We're brighter than we've ever been. We're functioning maybe more than we ever have, but we lack discipline. It's a spurt of energy,
What
and
do you
we're
think is
burning out.
What do you think is the root of discipline? Like the true root, the actual core of it. Like, what do you think is the gas that makes the engine of discipline keep running? Because I think I know what it is.
I totally think you do too. I was gonna say, I just wanted to turn that back in your face and be like, "Come on, tell me." But I wanted to guess too. But
I think it's supposed to be love, like not fear, not stress, whatever. And for a long time, the Japanese were very disciplined about their various traditions, mostly out of a fear that it would die.
And now it's dying because they're burning out.
Well, yeah, but if you do figure out like how to maintain discipline out of love than like fear, then maybe you'll be in a better place with quote unquote discipline. I don't know. I always thought like the only real way to make a person want to be disciplined is to give them like something that, you know, they want to protect, that they love, or that they, you know, something to pursue that they love.
Yeah, it's a neoliberal shift. So we've gone from thinking that you can't have everything you want, but you might be able to maximize the opportunity for your offspring or for your family. That it was and so because you knew you couldn't have everything you wanted, you didn't try for that, you know, but you tried to get something for the next generation. Now it's like you're told you're free. You're free. You can do whatever you want. Look how much freedom this guy has on TV, or that it's like celebrity worship is for, I think, really like social media. Like the gateway drug to social media was celebrity worship.
Wait,
and celebrity worship was for advertisements.
Have you ever felt that neoliberal freedom? I don't think I ever felt it. I mean, I'm not saying like
I was poll all my life. Like when I was little, when I was 6 years old, you know, they're like, what do they used to say? They're like, you know, you're so special. You're also special. Each one of you is so special, and you can do anything. You could become anything you want to become, right? I grew up when people used to think you could become a woman or you could become a Sasquatch, right? Like that's starting to shift right now. People are starting to get upset about the social ramifications of that. Like I mean, the main reason I think people are arguing against transgender ideology is the effects it has on societal, not just normativity, but on the self-realization of others. So let's say you wanted to be a girl, but you want to be the best girl sports star, and then girls are trying to be the best girl sports star they can be. But now it's like there's this kid in Minnesota, and she's a boy, right? Like biologically, and she's become the best pitcher. This because it's a male anatomy, she can pitch so much better in baseball than any of the born girls can. So it ruins the potential for self-realization of all of these girls to become the best girls they can be, because this boy can become the best girl they can be, right? And so that question is really, why are we, before this, we would never have asked that question. We would have said during the neoliberal period, which I think is ending now, that you can do anything you want, right? And you were so special. If you want to be the best female pitcher you could be, it doesn't matter that you were born with a penis. That I mean, I would have probably believed that at 6 years old if someone had argued that way to me. Like, yeah, you can do what you want.
I can't relate to that. Maybe it's just because the Asian upbringing or whatever. I was always told growing up what I wasn't allowed to do, what I can't do, and it wasn't until I became that's why I had such a turbulent teenage period, because like, you know,
what kind of things they tell you couldn't do?
Like go outside, hang out with friends, make friends, go hang out at the park outside by myself without like adult supervision, just like a lot of regular kid shit.
You know what? I think that's probably some of the best things that ever happened to me as well. No, for real. Like any restriction on my canvas, they're like, you have to paint on this canvas. You can only use these paintbrushes. That might actually be, I mean, to be told that you're endangered, because that's the other thing. Like they don't want you to go play outside because it would endanger your self-realization.
Yeah. And also like once I was given a slight bit of freedom, it was like too much. I was like, whoa, I could do this. I could just cut school every single day to smoke weed and like drink 40s with my friends, really. And I just did. And because like I wasn't until then I realized like how serious my upbringing was, like different from like my usual peers. And then in adulthood, it became even widened when I was like, oh, you're saying like I'm allowed to just have a job and have my own apartment and sign my own lease. I could do these things. And, you know, it made me more grateful. I think it made me more appreciative of maybe stuff I should maybe take more for granted. I don't know.
What about you, Andrew? Were your parents pretty like did they kind of discipline you a bit?
Oh, I mean, I was raised by like my mom mostly. She's the Asian one. For most of my life, she met my stepdad, who, you know, 6'3", white, was like a model who like traveled to Europe and shit, like very
This
conventionally.
explains so much about you. Sorry.
But like it was really strict with her because it's like she had to be, you know, the carrot and the stick, you know, and she was young. She had to, you know, she was compensating. She grew up with very strict parents, so in her mind, she wasn't that strict.
Yeah,
but
comparably.
yeah, but you know, I mean, it was like she also had 3 brothers and sisters. Like she used her experience as that, you know, 2 immigrant parents managing like 4 first generation American kids, and the chaos that is. They used to get in all sorts of trouble, so she thought nothing. I didn't get into half as much trouble as my, because, you know, she kept me on a relatively short leash. But then at adolescence, you know, you know, I was such a good kid for so long. She trusted that I would continue to be a good kid. And then, you know, I went out in the boonies, went to a school that had 10 times the amount of students.
Yeah.
And wear a uniform every day anymore.
Party days.
Yeah, dude. And I just really went sales, and they're like, oh, this kid likes to party. Well, you know, I know how to handle that because I used to party. It was like I was getting a weed allowance. You know, we don't want you to get your stuff off the street. So that's, you know what I mean? It's very confusing, very conflicting. Two poor kids.
Wow. A weed allowance.
That's like some West Coast Midwestern shit.
Right. Yeah. Well, we just do it in the house. We don't want you to get in trouble out there. Do it in the house.
Well, to be fair, like if you lived out here in New York City and grew up here, like there would be no need to just do it in the house. There's so many like alleyways, little nooks and crannies to just sneak into and smoke weed like a rat. You know, like it's hiding away.
Well, you know, I was in San Francisco, so we had our places. It was San Francisco's not nearly as big as, you know, Manhattan.
Dense. Yeah.
7 by 7 miles, yeah, but it's very, very dense. Go 2 blocks the wrong direction. But it's also, you know, in cities you have so many converging classes, and you know, I was a skater, I was an artist, so those things kind of attract people from every class. You know, so I would, you know, I'd be hanging out with some rich kid who lived in Pacific Heights, and we'd go and smoke weed with a homeless kid, and you know, we'd be hanging out.
Yeah. But then when you get older, that happens a lot less because, like, after years of the rich kids getting robbed, losing shit, having shit go missing, getting into stupid situations, that's when rich people realize, like, I got to stay away from the poor kids. I got to stay away from the poor people. We got to stop hanging out.
Do you feel, I mean, I keep for some reason wanting to say Nietzsche said God is dead and refer that back to our parents. And I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how to word all this, but did you ever feel like your parents were, you know, infallible and, or at very least, you know, good, like godly parents, and then decided that they're really just children of God and they're sinners and they have their own problems as well, and that they're not really.
Ever since I was like a little baby, like a toddler, one of the earliest memories of my father, I remember because I was just in diapers and I was cold, and I saw him in handcuffs. And then ever since then, it was like I just knew.
Nice.
I was like, "Yep, he's just a guy. He's just a
You lucky bastard." Yeah.
because he got in like so much drama. Like he was a little thug back then. He was just getting into fights all the time, and I was like, even as a kid, I was like, "Yep, he's an idiot. Like he's just a dude."
So in a way, don't you feel like that's liberating as all hell? Like,
yeah, it made my dad like able to really speak frankly. Like when I grew up, I never had like, I mean, yeah, he was mean, so he would make me do things. That's different than like being like strict and saying, you know,
holding your parents to a higher standard. Or it's like you out the gate, that standard, the bar was on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you similarly, Andrew, or?
My illusions were crushed, dude. I thought my parents knew everything. I thought that they knew the best. I thought, their direction was, well, I thought my mom's direction at least was, because she knew she had more life experience, I attached value to that. So if I was speaking from my intuition and for some reason that conflicted with her experience, and she was vocal about that. And, I was like, eventually I just learned to stop fighting it and be like, you know what, they've gotten me this far alive. Sure. Why not? But like, as soon as I had a kid and I was like starting to play back the tape, like, oh shoot, my mom was like freaking this age when I was this old. And I have very clear memories of that. And like, she was just fucking making shit up. It is not real. It's like my mom was just fucking winging it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought my parents were pretty infallible when I was young, and I thought, I mean, my parents were very smart, but I wasn't smarter than my parents until I was at least like 10 years old. So it took me about 10, I think, is when I started recognizing that they were just children, still like just older children of God. But it started really hitting hard because the more you start to see them make mistakes in their own life and irreparable damage that they cause in trying to control your own choices, like constantly sabotaging any chance of self-realization because of their own fears, and it seems like I agree with Chris that there's a benefit to knowing that we're all kind of brotherly love between your parents instead of thinking of them as gods, like to think of them as like your brothers that have similar problems, that you brother and sisters, that they're like irrational, emotionally charged, and that they can make mistakes. Like that might alleviate some of the expectation because it's so much suffering to be disappointed in a parent. I think and I think that's a big one for most people. It just shakes your world. The same thing as losing your God.
Yeah. Back to what you said about how liberating it is, though. It's like I no longer carry the weight of that expectation on another human being, just because they raised me. It's like, yeah, they are just another person. I don't have to hold them up to any. I could speak to them as an equal, Chris, like you were saying. It's like you were able to have that like open channel, at least from your end, to be frank with your dad.
Yeah.
But
personally, now at this point, I feel like he fucking needs me. Like I feel like I don't know, because he grew up in such a limited like dimension compared to like I've seen a lot more than him at this point. I mean, it wasn't always the case, but between us now, it's like, yeah, I could honestly say like I've seen a lot more in the world than he has. And like I feel like I could help temper him in a bit. Like when he gets pissed off about some work shit, I'm like, tranquile. Like let's talk about that fishing trip or something. I don't know, like just chill. Hold on, I'll be right back. Like the kettle's on.
Dog whistle right there.
Yeah, man. It's people are people. I'll just. But what Chris was saying reminded me of what I mentioned earlier about how like I stand to learn more from my children than they do from me. It's I think that's sort of natural. That's the progression of life. That's how it's supposed to go. If the act of generation is a way for humanity to recalibrate itself to whatever present conditions are going on, like this new combination, it has a higher chance of being equipped mentally and physically, emotionally and spiritually to like overcome all this stuff, because like it carries, our DNA carries the programming of all of our experiences and all generations past.
What was like the worst? I don't want to have to make you talk about things you don't want to, but like, do you have an example of like one of the worst disagreements that you can think of you had with your parents that you just felt like were so different in perspective? Really, not like, I mean, like actually like philosophically different ways of looking at it.
I mean, I've always been a fundamentally very different person from my mom. That's where that was the source of all of our disagreements. But as I've gotten older, I realized that the sort of like spiritual high ground that I felt that I had was really like a luxury of time afforded by, you know,
Abundance.
given to me because of all the like the hard work that my mom put into raising me. It's like she didn't get the time to pursue that part of her mind. So
Totally.
See, this just loops back to gratitude. I always say gratitude is the key. It's the actual key. Just be thankful, and everything just works out, like straight up.
I'll use at the end of the day, the fundamental disagreement was I have faith in the universe. My mom has doubt.
Yeah.
Hesitation. So you know, I was 18 or 19. I just got my real estate license, and this is just a little example. You know, I was looking into brokerages around LA to get with, and you know, I looked at Keller Williams at the time on Sunset Boulevard, and they had a pretty good. Oh, it's a little baby. They had a pretty good deal going on, a pretty like just how they split up commissions and everything, and the way that you could build a downline. And I sat through the whole seminar, and like I went back to my parents. I was like, "Hey, I found this really great brokerage." Gave them the whole spiel, and
Boomers are grown-up children that have everything handed to them on a silver platter, but they say they pulled up their bootstraps. I'm sorry, I just had to continue.
No, it's true. My parents are Gen X, but you know, it's just boomer light, diet boomer.
Yeah, it's cool. Young parents. I'm sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So I gave them the whole spiel. My mom was like, "That sounds like a scam. How about you join us at our brokerage and on our downline?" And I was like, I don't really think that's gonna work out too great for me. So I just kind of like let it. I just stopped looking. 2 months later, my freaking stepdad, who has his real estate license, leaves his brokerage, goes to Keller Williams, and they try to get me on their downline. I'm just like, freaking kidding me, dude. Like,
you're lucky your family weren't in Amway. You know, I'm just saying, like that's what happens to people.
Yeah. It's and that's just a really small example, but it was just like I was right off the jump, you know, but it's because like I don't know, my mom's innate skepticism and like just me being an overly trusting person, because like from a young age I felt like more good was happening to me than bad, so I had a sort of like paranoia. I don't know. Yeah, it's there's a lot of other little things, but that's just one example.
Well, you know,
I want to ask the same question to you, Chris, but no, go ahead, you first. And
then what were you going to ask? I'll answer.
Yeah, you will. But like, tell me what you were about to say, because I cut you off.
I was just going to say, like, I definitely relate to the idea of feeling like a philosophical or spiritual high ground over your parent, especially if you've seen a lot more than they have, like objectively. But sometimes, you know, like still, like I think there's things that I think my dad will always have over me. Like I'll never know what it's like to have to raise a kid at 21. I'll never know what it's like yet. Maybe I don't know if I'll ever do it, but raise a whole family with like multiple kids and a whole ass wife. And
yeah, with one hand tied behind your back, essentially, with an intellectual hand tied behind your back.
Exactly. So I don't know. You know, maybe that's something that, you know, maybe I'll never really. Maybe that's just going to be a gap in my own like path, which I'm cool with. You know.
So what I'd asked Andrew right before you went to get your tea was like when you think of like a major optical like disagreement in the way of looking at things you have with your parents, like something that's like a big difference in the way you see things. He harped on being from faith versus being from skepticism. I think you said like you look at the universe with faith and your mother looks at it through skepticism or doubt. What was it?
I conflated the two. I think that I think doubt is probably more appropriate, but yeah, essentially, yeah, faith versus doubt.
Yeah, but like, what about you, Chris? Do you think that there's like, what are the major different ways of looking at things, or like the biggest disagreement in the way you see things from your parents? Like a major conflicting argument that you have?
We don't have any conflicting views anymore. I mean, it's just things that my dad inherently told me. He's like, I disagree with you on this, but honestly, I wouldn't want you thinking any differently. Cause like I tell him things like, honestly, I feel like I'm just grateful for every day. I feel like everybody is ultimately the same soul living out different lives in different bodies. And, you know, he's like, he's not even sure if he believes in a God. He hasn't really thought too much about a soul. It's because he comes from like a time of like more scarcity. He had to work more. He had to worry about like gang shit and like not getting jumped and making a buck. You know, like
material suffering. Yeah. For real.
Exactly.
And we're privileged. We totally are in a weird way. Yeah, it's funny because I think there are other people that are even more privileged and are even more screwed by it. So we're lucky to be only slightly privileged. We certainly are, and it changes
Oh
the
yeah.
way you look at things for sure. And we're blessed by that. I was thinking about Grandpa Simpson because I've been watching that show. I can't help myself now that I'm Simpson's age, and it's freaking me out to look at the transitionary period because when the show first came out, Grandpa Simpson was my grandpa's age, and now he's my father's age. And so at one point, Grandpa Simpson was a greatest generation survivor in the 30s, and now he's grew up in the 50s and 60s and 70s. So he, like the difference between brought up earlier, whoever said that that boomers think that they pulled themselves up by the bootstraps, but they actually had everything handed to them on a silver platter. This completely transitions from the greatest generation because my grandparents' generation was a lot harder. It was extremely hard. And for my parents' generation, like the 50s and 60s, and that was pretty good. Let's be honest. Like it's a completely different thing to be grown up in a world where, you get to kindergarten and no one speaks the same language as you because you come from a farm and everyone spoke their foreign language, right? Like that's like first generation immigrant reality for a lot of people, for Asians or for Europeans, was different. And the assimilation, you could tell completely the difference between someone who's like, well, I'm an American. So, well, did you speak English when you were 5 years old? No, and that's why I'm so damned American. I did everything I could to become American. Whereas like someone who has been, everyone's the same. We're all American. You're like, well, what makes me different? Well, your great grandparents came from Sweden. So, oh, well, now I have to really go to IKEA and study my culture. Like, what is it? Right? Like, that's what it seems like we've changed so much because we are so privileged and we would have sacrificed so much more and become ourselves in the process. There's a huge difference. And I wonder what that difference is also between their generation and ours. But yeah.
I feel like I neglect my own culture too much. Here I am studying Japanese swordsmanship, steeped in American culture, driving an American fucking muscle car, and
that is your culture, damn it. That's the most Korean thing I've ever heard. The only thing you need to do is add it, throw an egg in there, and then you're pretty much.
It's pretty spicy, yeah.
That's a weird stereotype, but the fact that Koreans put eggs in so many things is brave and stunning, and I'm a fan. Actually, I like eggs in almost any meal, so good idea.
I just want to say, like, I do love American culture, though. I think it's pretty cool. I like it. A lot of people shit on it. Agree. I can see why. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's one of the reasons I leave it so often, because like I hate it while I'm there, but once I get out of it, I'm so happy to be American because it's I'll be critical of anything. I'm pretty sure. If I was in Saudi Arabia, I'd probably be critical, and it wouldn't be good for my future. So
I think America was strongest when corporate competition actually benefited the consumer.
I mean, the question is, would I die for my country with its faults and all? Like, I think about Red Dawn. Would I be one of those people fighting the North Koreans? Probably. If my boys were in, I'd be like, yo, you guys want to kill some North Koreans invading our country?
But in the new Red Dawn, it's so good. I mean, I don't know which side I would pick for the new Red Dawn because the Koreans. I'm just saying, they look cool in that movie. Like,
they'll be blasting that new Kanye West song.
We need to make we need a prequel to the new Red Dawn, and where you find out like a lot of South Korean American citizens are disenfranchised from both Korea, from the westernized Korean culture, and renationalized by North Korea. Because I wonder the same thing about North Korea. How much, if we're talking about privilege and how that changes you and how scarcity mindset builds you, what does that say about North Koreans who are willing to sacrifice so much for their families and for their state? I mean, how much better off, in a weird way, are starving? I mean, I'm not saying they all are starving, but like, how much better off are North Koreans than Americans?
I would say they're probably really cool, but awkward to hang out with at first. Like, you got to take a lot of time to loosen them up and break them into bring them out. It's like,
oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
It's like, come on, I can't bring you anywhere like this. You got to loosen up a bit. Here, drink this. Smoke this.
But then they're shooting guns at rats, and screaming. Yeah.
Oh shit.
The way it's you see all these people who ride so hard for the president for one reason or another. It's like I imagine that the attitudes of the people are very similar to those who ride so hard for.
Hell yeah. Kim Jong-un is the same thing as Trump, 100%. I 100% feel that way, and it bothers so many of. I have a lot of friends, like, because I'm super critical. I'll be super critical about the left because they were pretty much the establishment, but also because they are trying. So it's worth being critical of someone who's trying, because then they'll try harder, and they'll be. It's not that I hate.
Will they try harder? I feel like they try to be more palatable at the while sacrificing any sort of like their compromise. The compromises that what they're getting for how much they're compromising isn't mathing for me.
Of course. Well, but you have trans in schools now, so that's you have litter boxes in classrooms. So
or they
the little things.
Teach soccer. Everyone knew it's like, oh, there's Miss Bob, the PE teacher, with the short hair and played softball and has lived with the same best friend roommate for 30 years. Like,
yeah, they were doing just fine before the left. But I think the problem is now that the right is in power. If we're going to just do this diametric opposition thing, but whatever is going on, people that then thought of themselves as my friends, there's a lot of people that are like, what the hell, Andreas? Why are you not being more, like you said, patriotic towards Kim Jong-un? Like, why are you not more, don't you feel like a fanaticism for Trump? Don't you feel like a religious submission to all things Republican? Why aren't you more enthusiastic about the Christian right? You were so critical about that. Why are you also being critical about this? It seems like that's logical to me.
Well, what's the answer, Andres? Why are you like this?
I'm trying. I think the answer is, if you're already like that, then why would I change now? Like, if I'm being critical about one thing, shouldn't I continue to be critical about the other thing? But I think Andrew might have answered something that'll help me change, which is being critical actually helpful? Am I actually driving them towards change at all?
You're just sucking. You're learning how the sauce. You love the sausage so much. You want to learn how it's made, and then you're like, maybe I don't like this sausage, and that's totally cool. Like, I read the ingredients on the back of the can of Spam. I was like, I'm okay with this. I'm gonna continue to eat Spam.
For me, once I see how the sausage is made, I'm like, look at these crazy machines they use. This is insane. Look at this thing. This mechanically takes apart the animal. It's crazy.
If it weren't for Spam, so many people would be dead. Are you kidding me? So many, like there's billions of people alive because of Spam. It blows my mind if you think about
McDonald's
it.
too.
Dude.
Well, I mean,
Spam saved Asia. Spam saved most of the islands, Sorry, Andrew.
No.
This part was brought to you
by
Spam,
dude. But I mean, I think being critical and being skeptical can be different things. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's the act of picking something apart to understand it better isn't necessarily bad. It's like, what's your intention in doing so? If your intention is to truly understand it better, yeah, sure. Or just to, I mean, either way, you're learning about it, and how you feel about it, that's your choice, and you're free to do that because you're an individual. Like, I used to be very vocally like anti-communist. Like, and then they were like, well, why don't you
what happened? Yeah, right.
I read a book. I read 4 or 5 books, and I was like, you know what? Even if it's just a theory, it makes a lot more sense than the theories that I was subscribing to beforehand. And it also sort of like made me realize how my perspective comes from a place of privilege, and I'm an able-bodied person. I'm able to socially navigate according to whatever social assets I do have, whether it's being a man or looking a certain way or being a certain height, whatever. Having long arms so I could reach something at the grocery store for a little old lady, that's fucking privilege. Like,
I will say this though, like, yes, we're pretty privileged in a sense where we live in an age of abundance, greatest time in human history so far. What I do think though is that no matter how privileged you are, you have to remember that it could all be over like that.
Oh yeah.
So remembering that no matter how privileged you can be, knowing that you could just die at any second for no reason, like, That being said, do you really want to spend what fleeting time we have like fighting for, some far off cause? I mean, yeah, I know you could say communism is pertinent to all of us, but not just communism. Like, what about like, being committing to this bit of being a Nazi, in the public image or something like that? Just various things. Like, is this really what you want to do, knowing that you could just be dead? Like, is this really what the last thing you want to be doing?
I mean, death is like honestly the easiest option. Like you could become paralyzed, and then it's like you lose the ability to actually kill yourself. You know what I mean? It's
Or you lose your family and you have to live with that. That's
Yeah.
even worse. Yeah, shit like that.
You're relying on other people. You're completely powerless. It's like you're the fucking. Then, it's I'm an able-bodied person. I know that can go away at any time. I try to make the use of what I do have while I have it. But honestly, it's like death would be the easiest option of anything else. There could be a million different other things that would just like make it more difficult for me to live. And that would be enough. That's what
Starship Troopers kind of is the impact on my life. Like, so watching the stars of Beverly Hills 90210 in this very mainstream style movie and realizing like, wait a second, like this is about fascists. Like it's kind of, when you're like 8 years old and you kind of get that, you're like, but yeah, there aren't that many protesters, in the movie. You've got like the government's in charge of the media. It's Google. It's like this is predicting Google controlling all media industrial complex. Not like a big of a prediction after Mockingbird, but it's still that we're living in a world that it's very possible to have a collectivist ideology where any suppressing voices are silenced before you ever hear of them. You never see them, right? There'd be no way that you'd see the protests on TV. So you get inclusivist fascism, right? And the fact that that's possible, that makes you worried about the neoliberal agenda, because then the neoliberal agenda is woke fascism. Even before we knew the terms for this, woke fascism. But if you're able to, and you're worried about being a cynical person calling out the potential for fascism on one side, then you it'd be kind of disingenuous or crazy to all of a sudden stop now, right? Like everything, like we were able to bring up the potential worries of a humanitarian, philanthropic, benevolent mask of fascism. So then we're now in a system that's not masking itself as benevolent. We have a system that's kind of masking itself as selfish. And so we should be calling out the current status quo as much as we were calling out the last status quo, right? Or is that...
Yeah, I do it for fun, but that's just because I'm a fucking piece of shit on the internet. Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down, man.
Isn't the real issue with like fascism, as Mussolini defines as the marriage of the state and corporatism? The only bad part about that is that the state and the corporations are acting solely for their own benefit and not the benefit of the people. So technically speaking, if fascism was used for the benefit of the people, which it hasn't been historically, and I'm not saying it's good, I'm just saying like that's how it's gone.
Definitely fascism has been used for the good of the people in certain circumstances. That's the irony there. Like in Spain, they gave people good, clean water. There are definitely examples, right?
Sure. I mean, yeah, even the Roman emperors gave clean water to the people. They built the aqueducts.
Yeah. They murdered people, they killed the Goths, they did all kinds of horrible things, but yeah, there was some clean water, right? So we have to be honest about that. Yeah.
You gotta what is it? You gotta crack some eggs to make an omelet, right?
You gotta take the bad with the good. I gotta show you this picture. Today I went to the store because I was looking for some sandals, and in Germany, of all places, I found these.
Fashy.
I really need them. I don't understand how they could. I just, you know what?
It's like, yo, Andreas, what happened to your feet? Oh, what? These are just my fashies.
Oh my God, bro.
It's just Aldi. Is that the Aldi brand shoe they have out there or something?
Basically, yeah. But no, Aldi makes things that say Aldi on their own. But like you go to Lidl, whatever, which is owned by Aldi, and they sell like random brands and things like that, and they have the fashy. But like they're these are just the cheapest Chinese sandals you could possibly buy. Yeah. Still, it's interesting to me.
They know their market.
Sorry?
They know their market.
Yeah, they totally do. And like, what does it mean? Like you're trying to provide for the everyman something. So this is, to me, that seemed like maybe too much of a coincidence or a synchronicity after the Kanye song. I really do think we need to kind of, I know we don't have a lot of time left, but just the Kanye West song is so important right now because what's it really about? It's transgressive. And it's this idea, you know, transgression is maybe an artistic endeavor to, you know, to react and to question social norms just to see what the boundaries are and also to understand what is the benefit or if there's any sort of hidden negative in something that we're socially accepting. Maybe we've ignored something that's like negative there. And here we have someone who's been accused of being, you know, the song isn't just him saying Zig Heil or something like that. Like he's saying, my kids were taken from me. Nobody understands what I'm saying on Twitter. And all of my friends, they're calling all of my friends, you can say the N-word if you want, but he's saying his friends, all of his friends are being called villains. You could say the other N-word if you want to, but like they're being called villains. So he's saying all my friends are being called villains, and therefore I'm going to become the villain. And then he says, you know, look, I'll say what I'm told I'm not allowed to say. And so isn't that kind of this inversion of everything? It takes away from the whole point, because what we're supposed to believe the fascist was the person that wouldn't allow you to self-realize, become yourself, and share your emotions, your speech, your freedom of speech, or your own, you couldn't express yourself. And so here he's saying, well, I wasn't allowed to express myself. So I'm doing this, I'm becoming the, it's an interesting inversion to me, and it might completely destroy the value of those labels. I think it might, it's scary to say this, but I think it might be the most brilliant thing Kanye West has ever done. That doesn't mean he's done that many brilliant things or that it's that brilliant, but it's definitely his best move.
Would we have felt differently if he released this song before the song that he released about him and his cousin?
Like, yeah, I think this is kind of a first. I really do think that he feels actively like he's under attack. This seems like
blackmailed in every degree. Yeah. They're always blackmailing. They're like, we're going to tell everybody what you did. We're going to shame you for who you are. The choices you made, we're going to embarrass you about them. That's their whole goal.
Yeah, and his response is like, you know what? I'm going to make a song about it. Like it's self-destruction, self-immolation, like trying to liberate himself in a desperate attempt. He's like, yeah, I used to suck my cousin's wiener. Yeah, I'm a Nazi. Yeah, see, yeah. Like this is what he's really trying to like. He's like, what else you got on me? Like, what can you possibly say? Because they really did.
Yeah, he's fitting his own bill. He's paying for his own choices. He's willing to. He's like, all right, what's the bill? I will pay for my own choices. I don't want to make it like that it's the most brave and brilliant thing ever that he did. I'm just saying, like, yeah, it's kind of more interesting than people are giving it credit. And it definitely doesn't mean what people think it does. I don't think he's doing it because, you know, like, because I saw Ben Shapiro, aka Porky Pig, and he was saying, he's really good back out. You know, what he's saying, he clearly he hates the truth. Right? Like he's crazy and he hates it. Two things can be true. Is that not like exactly what he sounds like?
That's the first time I've ever heard you do an impersonation, really.
I'm sorry. I really try not to.
Because
like I also don't always do authentic impersonations. Like a lot of the time I'll just do like emotional impersonations, like, oh, I am Obama, but like in certain circumstances, you know. I think with that, it's not true. I don't think that maybe because Ben Shapiro really pushes this idea that Kanye West is anti-Semitic or he hates Jewish people specifically. I think he's like really maybe almost aroused by them. Like he has like an almost sexual curiosity about Jewish people. Like he's so interested in them, and it's like a taboo to him. But I wouldn't say he fully hates them. It's like kind of, it reminds me of Owen Benjamin, you know, like Owen Benjamin is
maybe he just had really negative experiences with some Jewish
people. Of
people.
course he's had negative experiences because he works in media.
I don't want to say that,
but okay, we know that Kanye is terminally online. He's constantly scrolling through maybe the same 4 or 5 apps. Could you imagine what his algorithm is like? What information is being fed into his psyche by this like hyper efficient CIA like brainwashing device, like, and he's the perfect candidate for all. He's sort of encompassing all of these, like every sort of like fringe thing. He's bringing it into the mainstream. He's like, you guys know exactly what I'm saying. It's like if everyone in APM took a dump in a pot and fed it to Kanye, like this is what would happen.
Yummy.
I feel, yeah, I almost do feel personally responsible for what happened to Kanye West, but it wasn't my fault. And I do think that in general, before there was APM, we used to have a group called I've Been Radicalized by the Internet, and it was about that idea. Because I remember, it was really popular for a while. We had like a big Facebook group. It was like 20,000 people. It was bigger than APM, but it was one of the first groups to be taken down that I ever created. Because the whole point of the group was look at all of these radicalized, particularly American and European Muslim kids who are becoming terrorists, like, or micro terrorists, whatever you call these anomalous events where they, car bomb or they blow something up. And it was often I was seeing, it's a kid in Canada or a kid in Minnesota or a kid in Germany, and they're isolated in their community and they're on their computer, and then they watch a video and then Google suggests another video. And if you just sit there, Google would suggest to you things more and more and more, right? So if you started with one video on, I don't know, like a Muslim song, then it might lead to an imam doing a lecture on the Quran, and that might lead to a radical nationalist, and then that might lead to terrorism videos. And it would be really quick, actually, how easy it would be that you could become radicalized by the internet, right? And that maybe has changed slightly, but I don't think it really had. It's maybe they're more selective about whom or which direction they radicalize you towards. But it's not that it's changed that much. More than ever, we've been fed this machine that will radicalize you. And we're at that point now where how much control do you have over yourself if you're just filling your mind up with the symbols of others? You feel like Kanye West clearly wants to be a self-realized free person. How free do you think he feels, and how free do you think he is?
I mean, he's still a slave to language and his own personal history and the history of the planet. So, like, the means with which he has to express himself as a free person are still, like, if he wants to be relevant, if he wants to stay in the conversation, he knows all of the right things to do it. And he has the platform with which to maintain relevancy. Like, and what's the reason? Like, why is he doing this? I think he's doing it because he's a troll and he wants attention, like every other,
Why is he just a troll? Like, you know what I mean? Like, isn't it like? Don't you think it's maybe more that it's? I feel like it's reactionary to being hurt.
Oh my God! The world is not short on victims. Lord knows.
I didn't think they were. I'm just saying that's the thing. The world, like, that's probably the most common archetype. And here's a guy who he feels hurt because his wife has rejected him. He's lost his family. I think that out of that he's being told that you need to behave a certain way.
Yeah.
And to be given love, not just by your wife or your children, but by society at large. And that conflicts with his capacity. I mean, I don't think he feels like he has the capacity to become a different person than he is.
I don't want to invalidate his trauma or whatever.
God, you're good with words. Round of applause for Andrew. Invalidate his trauma. Thank you.
But that being said, I mean, it's oh no, it's the consequences of my own actions. You know what I mean? So what? So he's not accepted by this group, so he's gonna rebel by, like, trying to be I don't know,
He's trying to unite all of the other blackballed members of the lodge. Anyone else who was kicked out of the lodge, he's like, look, there's actually more of us kicked out of the lodge than there are actually members of the lodge left.
Well, I mean, it's what was that? Jay-Z on his last record, he was like, what is it? House friend, field friend, still a friend. Obviously, not the word friend there, but let that sink in for a little bit. It's no matter how far you climb the social ladder, it's like, you'll always carry the shame of all the dicks that you suck to get there. Like, boo-hoo. Like, no one told you to climb the ladder. No one told you to suck dicks along the way. And maybe you didn't, for doing that, you should have
His
done
cousin
it.
probably did. Maybe his cousin told him to, though. Yeah.
If you're gonna get into a thing, like get into it because you actually want to do it, not because you think like people will like you more just because you did it. Like that's not the right reason to do anything.
Was Post not able to recognize me? Is that what's going on? Post, you didn't know it was me because I didn't have a beard anymore? Do I look? I mean, I didn't have a beard for more than like 3 weeks or something, right? Like, was it that long? I don't know. I'll get it back, but that's funny. You couldn't tell who I was. I don't know. Some people say he's trying to destroy his own brand. I don't think he is. I think his brand has already been destroyed and he's trying to, I don't know.
I hate that we're talking about him, honestly. It's like, I feel like us even talking about him is distracting from like a bunch of other stuff that actually matters.
I only do because I think that it relates so hard to the rest of the world in a weird way and what we're going through in terms of social normativity. I could bring up also the white mother Shiloh Hendricks who said the N-word to a child. I think these are all related things.
Culture, we call it crashing out.
Crashing out. We have societal expectations which are exhausting us, and individual kind of the way COVID led to the demise of wearing a suit to work. Right? There's less of an aesthetic to impress others and more of a performative change. We talked about the difference between discipline and performative. That's why they're crashing out the burned out society, like we mentioned earlier. And I think that Kanye kind of represents that to a large extent right now. However,
immature way of going. It's like, oh, I'm oppressed by the rules of society. I lose years of my life waiting at red lights. We rated red lights as a courtesy to other people. If I gotta piss, I'm not gonna go piss in the fucking drinking fountain. That's just a dickhead move. We live in this world full of other people. We all gotta use the same shit. Like, being kind isn't a fucking burden.
I definitely hate it when people crash out, but I never judge it because, like, in this crazy hyper tech world, like, it could happen to any of us. So I'm like, before I judge, let me just make sure it doesn't happen to me. Like, because that's why, I'm all about like holistic wellness. Because I feel like if I crash out, that's really just like bad for your surroundings, right? Especially if you're a guy. I feel like when you're a guy, you have a greater potential to be like just a severe inconvenience, at worst a danger to society, like,
yeah.
So it's like kind of my responsibility to not crash out, especially in a society that really wants you to crash out, Yeah.
Well, I think the role of the artist, right? The artist is supposed to see these truths and transform them and communicate them in a way that kind of like transcends the idea itself, can be interpreted in so many different ways, but also it's like they're sending a relatively clear message through their art. And I guess that's the thing that I don't respect about what he's doing, is that it's just him having a big mouth. There's maybe like 2 layers to this onion, you know what I'm saying? It's not that deep, and I feel like another artist could take the same ideas that he's trying to communicate and do it in a more artistic way. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're near the end anyway, but like, just because you said that, I'm curious, like, what are the things you feel like are more important that Ye is distracting us from? Like, what were the things we should have talked about for the last 15 minutes?
The reason why, we talked about like UFOs and Bigfoot, all of that stuff is really just trying to answer, like, where do we come from? What is our place in this world? Because if we know where we come from, we can have a better way to sort of calibrate ourselves in the present moment and make a more educated choice as a species as far as like the direction of where we're heading. Because we were talking about parents earlier. Once we figure out that our parents are just people and they're fallible, we're just like, oh fuck, they were just winging it. Like, everyone's thinking, oh wow, like the universe is just winging it. There's no kind of like, there's no purpose, there's no guidance. But like, I don't know about you guys, but my spiritual experience tells me that there is like a higher consciousness that we all have access to. And it does have a direction. There is like a will of the universe. And I think that the more access we would have to truth as far as who we are, we would be able to just make more educated decisions about how we function in our day-to-day lives as individuals and as a species in a community and society.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So the alien should have been talking Aliens.
We should be talking about aliens, but we are the freaking aliens, man. It's like, how do we become the aliens? That's all there is to it.
We're in the time. We're not out of time.
Yeah. Aliens are just undocumented workers. So, Chris, close it up for us. Tell us what we're grateful for.
Oh, I'm grateful for our family lines. You know, maybe there was like a lot of turbulence in our family histories, respectively, but at least we're here now. So that's always good, right? And I'm thankful for now. I could not have now, but I have now. So I'm thankful for that. And I'm thankful for all the people watching. Thank you guys. And both of you guys are always cool to talk with. So cheers to that.
Yeah, I'm thankful for you guys too. This is awesome. It's weird because like a lot of the time I try to have like a kind of like a point of what I want, and like I know exactly like all of these things I want to go over. But when we have conversations, one of the things I really like about it is that it's free flow into what we're feeling and like what we're processing this week. And I think that's really good for me. Like I really appreciate you guys because this is good for what I need. So thank you. I'm glad. And anyone else who's enjoying, if you guys like to watch this, good for you too. But like, thank you for being here in general. And I appreciate all the comments because this is like, this is our group conversation, So, all right. I'll see you guys next time. God bless.
Advanced philosophy memes.